The world of automotive lighting is vast and ever evolving, and within this realm lies a product that many have been talking about, the RGB Tail Lights by Vland. But are these lights the right fit for your ride? Or is there something more that a custom-built set can offer? Today we journey into the heart of these lights, offering insights, comparisons, and the knowledge you need to make an informed choice. Stay tuned and let's discover together. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So for this video, we're going to be diving into a set of the Vland RGB Tail Lights. A lot of you have probably been seeing them floating around the internet, eBay and things like that. And they are already addressable. They got the stuff inside, but you're probably a little curious like I was. What's inside of them? How do they make them? How do they get all the signals and things like that? What kind of controller are they using? And that's what this video is about. This video is going to be tearing these lights open, getting a look at them, and figuring out what is going on the inside, what kind of LEDs they're using, how bright you can expect these to be. There will also be another video very soon where I'm going to be building a set of these using our UCS 2903 strips. Anyone that has tried them, seen them in person, knows they are on another level. They are very bright, the brightest stuff that you can get on the market right now. So we're going to compare. We're going to see what would this set built with that UCS 2903 be compared to the set built by Vland. Now obviously price point is massively different, so you kind of got to keep that in mind if you're looking at buying a set of these versus the other. And you're also going to want to keep in mind the features of what a custom set is going to offer versus what this one offers. Now they are right now right around the $400 mark, so price wise very cheap for what you're paying. Definitely something to keep in mind. But we'll go ahead and dive in here. So on a light, you have a startup mode. So when you start up the car, DRL startup, it goes through this little rainbow mode. Now this is not changeable, this is set. So every time it will do that, you cannot change it to different modes like you would with like a Ghost controller or something like that. Then it comes on just like that. There is your DRLs. So these are your running lights. Next, you have your turn signal, which is this little section down here. So obviously when it comes to the addressable side, as you can tell, it's just in this section here. It is actually the color flow addressable stuff. This is a standalone, so it is quite bright, the turn signal. I don't think anyone will have any issues seeing you on the road. Here is your brake. So the brake is down in here as well as in this section here, and they are quite bright. I don't think anyone's going to have any issues seeing you on the road. So I would say for driving purposes, they are sufficient. And here is your reverse. Once again, quite bright. I don't think you're going to have any issues with that while driving on the road or for normal function. There is no shutdown mode, so if I disconnect, it just turns off. So the app is called Light Running. So once you get that downloaded, changing any settings in this app will activate the lights. So I go to the first mode here, and as you can see, there are a few different modes. I'm not going to spend too much time on each of them. Some of the later ones, you start to get into the RGB modes, different flasher modes, and then you also have the solid dial. Move this slider to whatever color you want to get it to. I think it's glitching out on me there a little bit. Okay, there it goes. I'm not sure what happened there. That could be my gator clubs or something. But so there is a wire. Obviously this is a separate light than this one, so this one goes on the trunk lid and this one goes on the other. So there is a wire that connects the two, and maybe there's something going on there. Like I said, the color wheel, the color slider, you can choose what solid color you want to run. You can set that to that. You have a speed control, so let's say that you went to this mode and you want to speed it up. You can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can dim it if you need to, as well as brighten it up if you need to. And it's having some issues there again. Okay, I think we're good. And that's it. There's just this one page. There's no other pages to this app, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. There is a remote that is included, and the purpose of the remote is like a quick mode to turn off the show modes. You push the button and it goes right back to your DRL function, so that will make everything work like normal. Now, from the best of what I can tell, these lights will only work if the DRLs are on in the car. There is no separate power connection or anything like that, so if the DRLs are not on in the car, your parking lights, your running lights, things like that, they will not actually function. So that is something to consider if you're at a car show or something like that. It will be the kind of thing where you have to have your DRLs on. So definitely something to consider. They will not run without that because there's no separate power connection to the battery or anything like that, which is pros and cons. Because it comes to install, these are going to be really, really simple to install, whereas a custom retrofit is going to be a little bit more involved. Usually you got to run a power and ground at least, and it depends who retrofits it, who builds it. In my case, on a set like this, I would be able to do everything but the power and ground. So you would have a controller with the harness that connects to each light, and then a power and ground that connects over. So that's something to consider. Ease of install. These are going to win out. They're very simple for install. So that gives you an idea of the lights, the function themselves, as well as some of the install itself. I will show you the backside now, and then we will go ahead and open them up. So on the back side, you have all the factory plugs, the trunk lid plug. This wire connects to the crossover wire from the two lights to make them communicate together. Then you have your other 4 plugs here, just like you do normally on the car, and they will all plug in. Now, just like anything that's LED, it is going to be polarity sensitive. So in the event that you do install these and one of the wires isn't working, one of the lights isn't lighting up, unplug it, flip it 180 degrees, plug it back in. It'll probably fix whatever that signal is that wasn't working. And that is the case on all 4 of these plugs. This plug, there's only one way to plug it in. You should not have that problem. I have already cut the light open, so all I'm going to have to do is just remove a couple screws. I'll pull that backside off, and then we'll get a look inside. On to the lights. Now, you have a basic central board here where all the wires are going into, and that is coming into here, and then all the white wires, as you can see, is just communications and data lines and stuff connecting everything to the main brains of the taillight itself, which is this board here. You will see there are a couple extra plugs that I've added in. I was playing before the video, so I have actually figured out what the LEDs are. I am able to connect it to a Ghost controller. I didn't go as far as messing with the little side light here, but it'll give you a basic idea of what is inside. Can it be controlled with the Ghost? What's involved with the Ghost controller? What's involved with programming sections and things like that? How much is involved with it? So, theoretically, could you take a set of tails like this that's, $400, add a $120 Ghost controller, and make it do everything it's doing, plus have more control? So it will work, but there's going to be a lot of sections that you have to actually program in to make it work and flow properly. On each of these panels, there's actually 2 rows of LEDs. And the way they have them programmed, it runs through one row, and then it runs through the second row, and then it goes on to the next board. That doesn't really make sense. I'm not sure why they didn't just split the data and run them side by side like I would if I was building a set like this. But in their case, they didn't, and they programmed it to work with their methods and what they decided to do. So in their case, it works. It's not a big deal that they didn't do it 2 rows. It does just make it a little more complicated when it comes to the Ghost, because you do have to actually have a separate data line for each. So meaning you're going to have to set a section across the whole thing to make it work right. So another concern with the way these are laid out. So while they are not quite as bright as a lot of the LEDs that I typically use, they are also not as dense. A lot of brightness can come from pixel density, which is basically how many LEDs you have and how close they are together. And there are not a ton on here. Now, as you can see the layout of them, they're spaced pretty far apart. Now, if this was not an addressable LED, that probably wouldn't be a big deal, like in the case of the turn signals and things like that. They don't really need to be as close because they're a lot brighter. But when you're dealing with LEDs that are typically not as bright, you do want more density. More density means brighter in the end. We usually use a 144 LED per meter count on the strips that we use, like in the case of UCS 2903, which would be what I will be using on the set that I build. But as you can see in these, they are spaced quite far apart. Now, I will also point out here, this is where I had to get my data out, because for me to be able to program the Ghost controller for everything to work right and flow properly, I did have to actually pull the data out from here. And in case with the LEDs, if you look up the SK68123535 data sheets online, they will show you which pin of the 4 on the LED is your data out. So I went ahead and tapped into the data out on this LED here, and I ran that to the second strip that goes around the outside, and that way I could get that individual control over those LEDs. So that gives you an idea of what to expect on the actual PCB itself and just how far spaced those LEDs are. Even just something as simple as an SK6812 5050, which is the normal sized LEDs that you're going to get online, it will be more dense, or it can be more dense if you get like a 144 per meter count on them, which means it can be brighter. They definitely could have got a lot more out of these if they had spaced them together a little bit tighter, or if they had used a little bit of a brighter LED option. So on the back side, you will have to unplug these 2 plugs here, because if you try to tap in and you have it connected to the main board, the LEDs do freak out a little bit. I think they're probably getting dual signals, backfeeding signals or something. So I've got a Ghost controller connection here. I'm going to go ahead and plug right in. So as you can see, I have the Ghost controller hooked up now. We're running the circle here, and you can see it's just a little bit all over the place. The LEDs are kind of moving around. It's partly with their data signal direction and the way that they ran everything. It's a little bit off. That can be fixed by simply programming in the sections. So what I did is I went in and I programmed everything. I just switched that switch back on so that now it's going by that mapping that I set to flow in a more uniform manner. Now, that does make things a little bit more difficult when it comes to programming different things. Traditionally with lights, the way that I like to do them, I would probably start here and flow up, and then they would meet and then flow to a corner or something. That's usually how I like to do it. That is going to be a lot more complicated to do on this light. If I played with it a lot, I might be able to get it there. My issue is going to be sections. You are limited to 10 sections per light. I'm already using 5 as it is set right now. So hopefully this video gives you a pretty good idea of what to expect inside the lights, what you can see. Once again, this is the video of the breakdown. This is a video showing you what's inside, showing you what to expect, showing you how the app works, showing things like that. It doesn't necessarily cover the install. They should install just like any other set of lights. You pull yours out, you put these in. There's not much to it. And there's a ton of videos out there with where the nuts are and how to actually pull your old lights out, put the new ones in. So I'm not going to cover that. But as far as the insides go, that's what you have to expect. As far as brightness goes, you definitely going to make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the future videos. I will have a video showing me retrofitting a set the way that I would do it. And I will have a video after that where I compare this set and the set that I bought to retrofit. So the set that I bought to retrofit is not this set. I'm not going to be gutting this set, taking it out. I'm going to do a side-by-side of the Vland RGBs and the Vland non-RGBs. They're basically identical lights, but the insides are different. So definitely look for those 2 videos if this video interests you. And make sure you subscribe, like, all that stuff on the channel so you don't miss that video when they do drop. But hopefully, I'm sure a lot of you, just like me, were very curious about these and how they work and how they function. I would say, in my opinion, these are not a bad way to go. If you are on a tight budget, you do not have the money to buy a custom-built set of lights, and you don't feel like doing it yourself, this is a great way to go. Even if you're going to do it yourself, if you buy the stuff that I'm going to use to build the set that I'm building, you're going to have the $300 for the lights themselves. Once again, these are about a $100 premium to have the RGB, but like $300 for the lights. And you're going to have to add in about $600 in parts to do it the way that I'm going to do it. So all in, you're going to be like $900 to maybe even $1,000 building it yourself. Now, if you pay for a retrofitter to do it, somebody like me, you're going to be right around the $1,700, $1,800 mark. So $400, $1,700 for something super custom. Now, obviously, the big thing is going to be if you roll up to a show with these next to a car that I built, people are going to ask you what's wrong with your lights. Like, it's going to be very different, and that's what you're going to find out more when you actually see the retrofit and the custom side. It's just like anything else. If you look at cameras, you're going to see how it's like, this camera takes great pictures, it looks good, everything's great. And then you sit it next to a pro level camera with a nice lens, your camera kind of seems flimsy now. It's going to be the same idea. This is not a pro level retrofit level set. Now, that's not to say that there's not retrofitters out there that would do exactly what they've got going on here and sell you something subpar, in my opinion, but that is something that you do have to watch out for. So that's kind of what comes back to a proper retrofit, a good retrofit. I do have another video on my channel which kind of goes into a little bit more detail on what you should be asking for if you're looking for a retrofit, to make sure that the person that is retrofitting your lights is doing a good job versus an okay job. There's a lot of retrofitters that will cut corners to try to save a few bucks to give you a little bit of a lower price point, but in the end, maybe you save $200 on that retrofit, maybe even $300 on that retrofit, but you have either A, nothing but problems because of the cheaper parts, or B, you have other issues related to the cheaper formats. I don't know anything about these lights' longevity. So you put them on your car, you're rolling down the road, you're dealing with stuff. I wouldn't typically use these LEDs in a build that I do because I don't generally trust them. Now, much of this stuff comes down to engineering. That's a lot of what Next Level Neo is all about. We engineer things differently than the majority of the market. So I get a lot of people that will talk about the things that they can get on Amazon and eBay for a lot cheaper than the stuff that we sell. And I try to enforce it in there. There's things like the thickness of the copper on the PCB itself. There's things like the resistor combos that you're using. There's a lot of little engineering factors that go into cost of the LED strip. And so one SK strip is not the same as another SK strip. And the reason I say that is that I do not know the engineering standards that were used by Vland to make these lights. It is a cheap markup to go from stock to the RGB. $100, you're not going to get anyone to retrofit a set of lights for $100. Not going to happen. So they really got the price down on these things very aggressively. But I don't know if that meant that they had to cut some corners somewhere, or if it's just they mass produced so many of them that they were able to get them at a price point that straight up a retrofitter cannot touch. So that's something to consider. Maybe you get a set, you try them out for a while, you be prepared for the LEDs to go bad, and then you go ahead and retrofit your own. And you can take this set. You could totally take this set. If the LEDs started going out, open them up like I did, pull all the LEDs out, put your own LEDs back in, and everything would work fine. So, you know, you could go that route if that's something you want to do. And that way you get the RGB for now, and then you can upgrade the RGB later. And once again, we will have that video coming out soon where we'll kind of give you an idea of where you can take them to when you do it at that point. It's an interesting set. I do like to see the RGB really coming into the scene, seeing a lot more people using them, a lot more people buying them, to the point that we actually have manufacturers like Vland making sets. I know they have this one. They also have a set for the Evo, and there might even be one or two more that I'm not aware of. I know there's some that are like just straight blue startups and things like that, but straight RGB addressable setups like this, the Civic and the Evo are the only two that I know of right now, but that may change in the very near future. Now, I would venture to say, if you're looking at the Evo set, it's going to function very, very similar to this one, probably using the same app, probably using the same LEDs. So definitely something to keep in mind. And once again, another thing to keep in mind with these is the reverse, the turn signal, and the brakes are on a separate circuit. They are not addressable. One of the biggest issues with these LEDs is they are not going to be bright. Your DRLs are going to be a little difficult to see in the daytime. These LEDs just aren't there. Whereas with the brakes, the turn signal, and the reverse, those are not addressable LEDs and are actually quite bright. So for those functions, I don't think you're gonna have a problem being seen. The parking lights are not quite as big of an issue, so it's not huge. The fact that there's no control over any of the startup mode, the sequential turn style, it is what it is. You're not gonna change that. You're not gonna change to a F1 strobe. Those are things to consider that you're not gonna have to deal with if you go with like a professional build with like a Ghost controller. And once again, that goes back to knowing what your builder's using. Just because it's a retrofitter does not mean they're using a Ghost controller, does not mean they're using a lot of that stuff. Case in point, if I was to build these lights, parts alone would be close to $900. If you've got a retrofitter that says they can do the whole thing, lights included, for $1,000, they're not using good stuff. Keep that in mind. So price-wise, expect to spend about $1,500 for a properly built custom set. But if you don't want to go custom, if you want to try to save a few bucks, this is pretty cool. I do like the way it's set up. The startup animation is really cool. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, please like, subscribe. If you're looking for parts, if you're looking for something to take your builds to the next level Neo is the place for you. Check us out. Once again, nextlevelneo.com, and there will be a link in the description. If you are looking for something to open up your lights, anything like that, we are an official distributor for Ecotech ultrasonic cutters, as well as all the LEDs that you would need and anything else. You can always reach out to us as well if you can't quite figure out what you need, and we can point you in the right direction. There's a lot of tutorials on this channel, so it's definitely worth checking out. On our homepage, check out our tutorials playlist, and you'll see a ton of them in there that'll show everything, go over everything to figure out exactly what you're getting into if you're trying to do this yourself. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.